Okay, next we're gonna be talking to Dan Martell. Come on up. All these guys, yeah, and Ben.
Check. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Yo.
What up?
Is it on?
Hey, everyone. This is my first time to Canada. I know, it's awesome. Thanks for having me. Halifax is really cool.
What up? All right, guys. If you're on break, if you hear this and you're in the bathroom or talking to somebody in the hallways, this is the voice of God. Come back into the theater. Come back. Don't wonder where it's coming from. Just turn around, stop talking to that person, get their card, and run back to the theater. We're about to kick off a session. As Ryan mentioned, my name's Dan Martell. I'm super excited to be here. First off, I want to thank Jevin and Carolyn and everybody that put on this event and the sponsors. Let's give them a big round of applause. I definitely want to thank everybody here. If you guys could indulge me, I've noticed that people have been engaging on Twitter, the hashtag Startup Empire, but can you guys all take out your smartphones and hold them up high for me? Turn them around and take a photo. Everybody, if you don't, I'm going to come find you after my talk and ask you why you didn't do it, and I will. Take a photo. My Twitter is @DanMartell. Ben is benny.events. I actually would prefer you guys, you can tweet it if you want, but I prefer you guys post it on Facebook. Let everybody that knows you know that you're here, right? There's one thing that we do a shitty job as Canadians, and that's tell stories. And I think the only way that we get, this whole theater with 4 theater rooms filled for big events is by letting other people know, because I know that afterwards they're going to be pissed that they missed this, right? I also want to say Michael and Dan are not only some of the best entrepreneurs in the country, but they're the best entrepreneurs I've ever met. You guys have some ridiculous talent here, not including myself, guys like Ben, who we just flew up from New York. So definitely take advantage, find them at the break, find them tonight at the after hours, and definitely talk to them. So I want to introduce Ben Hindman. Ben is a newish friend, but an old friend, and we'll get into that, from New York. He's the founder of a company called Splash. It's called splashthat.com. I first got introduced to that company when I read on TechCrunch that there was this company that wanted to kick Eventbrite's ass, right? And there was something, I love that. When I read it, I was like, cool, there's a startup that thinks they're going to kick like a multi-$100-million company's ass. He's probably a cool dude. I reached out to him in New York, invited him to dinner, and Ben was kind enough to grace us with his wisdom today. So thanks for coming, Ben.
Thank you, Dan.
Are we sitting or standing?
I don't know. You want to stand or sit? You like?
I just feel like sitting is just
He's
low.
a big dude. I'll stand. All right.
Do you guys want us to stand or sit?
Stand.
I'm standing.
Right, we're up.
I'm standing.
We're up.
Yeah. What you don't know is Ben's a semi-pro hip hop beatboxer.
Every time I get on stage,
I know, man. Every time I invite him on, I'm like, Ben, do your thing. He's like, fuck off.
Right, we'll do that.
It's all good.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you for having me to Halifax. This is awesome. I got a chance to talk to everyone, and there are more students than I expected and more startup kids. You guys have a startup bill here. This is real. So awesome. Thank you. Really excited.
No, I got to say this real quick. When we were driving, so I picked up Ben at the airport. We're driving into Halifax, and we're on the bridge, and he says something like, "Is this Whale Town?" And I was like, "No, it's called Wellington. It's the street." And he goes, "No, is this a whale town?" Like he thought we hunted whales. So he's truly never been to the east coast of Canada or any other ocean side country or city. So
cool. All right. Well, yes. Thank you again. And yeah, guys, I'm here today to tell you a little bit about what I do and what I've been through. It seems like there are a ton of people in the early stages of their business. Is that fair? I saw a bunch of hands. Raise your hands if you're working on something pretty early right now. Raise your hand if you're kind of past that early stage and into the more of like the don't F it up stage. All right, so a couple of you as well. I'd say I'm closer to that stage. We're getting there. Real quick, just to give you an idea of what Splash does.
Let's sit, man. This is weird.
All right,
you can't do a fireside chat standing up. I was like,
so my company is called Splash.
Ben, what do you do?
I am an event planner. My first event, actually Dan came to, was called the Summit Series. Huge event for the top entrepreneurs in the country. At that event, I met a guy who owned a company called Thrillist. And it's a big magazine. Oh, it's an email newsletter for dudes in New York, gigantic. I owned a walking tour at the time. We don't need to talk about that. He said, "What do you do for a living? This event is awesome." And I said, "I own this tour company." He said, "You're insane. Sell your tour company. Come work for me." and I moved up to New York from DC and started throwing events for a living. I did that for about 2 years, and then I got this bug, which I imagine many of you had, which was to kind of improve my own life, right, through technology. And so I started building. And you know, I won't take you through the mud of it, or maybe we can, but I ended up leaving Thrilla. So I was the director of events there, and I threw mystery flyaways, I threw huge concerts, I threw hotel takeovers for the largest brands in the world. And so I left and kind of abandoned everything that I had. Me and a buddy, he was technical, I am certainly not, and we started building something called One Clipboard. And it was the worst idea of all time.
What did it do?
So One Clipboard was,
I feel bad because I feel there's 2 startups working on this idea right now.
I
in
know,
this room.
it's hard, but it's a great idea. It's just hard to execute. If anyone's seen an event planner walking around, you'll see that they're holding a clipboard. That was the idea. We were going to streamline all of the run of show, the contact list, the task list, the budget for your event. And we built an exceptional product. And we asked our customers, and they loved the idea. And they said, go get it. And we built something that still today is like incredible. And it failed just absolutely miserably. But while we were doing that, it was actually, as the story goes, I got an angel that I knew. I kind of begged him for $200K. I got a couple more engineers, and at South by of 2012, we said, look, we're gonna throw a party for all the event planners, and we're gonna get them there. We're gonna blow their minds, and we're gonna they're gonna come and they're
like
gonna
your Twitter moment.
Right, that was it. Right, I was like, South by, we're gonna blow South by away. But in order to do so, I need some online presence for my event, and I need to look super awesome. And I was like, oh, you know, actually. This is actually a pretty good idea. Maybe we'll launch kind of a secondary product, and we called it Splash. I begged for this Mashable article, and this Mashable article launched in 2012 in February 20th. And you know, we had been building this other product for 2 years then, and on that day, we had gotten more traction in this one other little product than we had seen certainly in those 2 years. Since then, it's kind of caught fire.
And what's Splash for those that don't know?
Splash is just a badass event website creator. It lets you create. Truly, I would urge you to go on there only because I am incredibly proud of the tech. It lets you look super awesome very, very easily. It kind of feels like a Squarespace in an Eventbrite if they had a baby. But the way that I like to think about it is it's just the most powerful set of tools for event planners ever created. And that's how we're thinking about it. And just to kind of give you kind of an idea of where we're at as a business, we just finished our Series A. Right now, we're powering all of the events for every major social media company. So we power all the events for Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, Tumblr, Pinterest, Oculus, SoundCloud, and I'm missing one. Oh, Google. But we're
It's not planned because that was really well done.
Thank you. Our biggest customer is Anheuser-Busch. They'll power 50,000 events through Splash this year.
You guys have probably seen a Splash page that was powered, and they're beautiful. When I saw the product, I was like, there's clearly a product-focused company behind this. So,
thanks, man. Yeah, and I just say that. I think it's really important to say. So what I just said, like if I had heard that like 2 years ago, I would have been like, I was in your seats many, many times, and I was like, if I could say all those things, I'd be the absolute best person ever. I am absolutely having the worst time. It is so hard still, and I can't tell you how very, very difficult this journey still is. And before we kicked off, I just wanted to say that you are signing up for something epically difficult, and I wish you such good luck in it.
I love the audience. I mean, that's the thing about Ben is he's not going to sugarcoat it, and I think it's great. It's easy for people to come up here and kind of do success theater, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to talk about the real thing. On that story, Ben, what's the lesson learned? I mean, people are going to, okay, you did this little thing and it blew up, but what is the lesson learned? Is there anything that when you look back, there was like this clear decision that you would have made sooner?
Yeah. Well, first off, ego is a killer, right? I had a really big ego around this first product, and I just wouldn't let it go. But and we've been talking about this a little bit today, which is about vision, what Daniel was speaking about. As a CEO or in kind of anyone acting in a leadership capacity, it's kind of your job to have the ego. That's what everyone looks to you for, right? Your job is to tell the future. And so when you tell the future and to admit that future that you once told was wrong, you might be afraid to lose a level of trust. So that was a really difficult moment for me and my team that I had to essentially say to them, hey guys, I botched this. But I see a better vision, and can you take another chance on me?
What were you not seeing in one clipboard?
Yeah, use. I was lying to myself. I said this was and it really conceptually is, and I'm sure many of you have gone through this.
Really well built.
It's an awesome concept.
Nobody's
it's an awesome product.
using it.
Nobody's using it. Worse off, this is the worst part, and this is the killer. They told me that they wanted to use it. And then you look in and they never logged in or they never started.
They lied.
They lied. But your customers are going to lie to you. That's the worst part. I couldn't agree with Michael more that you got to talk to your customers. At the same time, actions speak a lot louder than words. And if they're not using it, you'll know pretty fast.
That's cool. I mean, one thing, Ben, we talk a lot about is product. And, you're definitely, design pixels really matter. I went to your office and you were like obsessing about like colors and like just drop shadows. But for a lot of people here, they've never had experience in building product, right? We're CEOs, technical founders. What is your high level approach to building great product?
Awesome. Thank you. That's awesome. Okay, so there's two really important things. As a startup, your only distinguisher is your ability to communicate your legitness to the world. That's all you got.
It's a technical term?
Yeah, legitness. And I would just, the thing that whenever I speak to kind of early stage companies, I just always stress, focus on your design. Invest in your design. It'll pay you back. It'll pay you back 500 times. It's the only thing you have to communicate. The presentation we saw before, I actually have no idea if her product actually works, but it looks really sweet, and I give her respect for that, and I probably would check it out. That's first off. Design. Hire a designer, or hire a freelance designer if you can't afford it. Certainly in the early days you can't, but invest in that. This is the second one, and I actually share the words. Our advisor and investor is a guy named Scott Belsky. And this hopefully you can see kind of how I operate in my business when I say this. We created something called the Belsky Doctrine.
And who's Scott?
Scott Belsky owns a company called Behance. Behance is a network of creatives.
The world's largest creative network,
it's
bought by
huge.
Adobe for
$100 million.
$100
The guy's the man. And so what I did was I brought him in, and I basically asked him to say something kind of for me, and then I immediately called it the Belsky Doctrine. This is my way of essentially using other leaders and jumping on their back so that my team kind of thinks that I'm a good dude. Anyway, so the Belsky Doctrine is this: you can only build one product. So I just mentioned a ton of different companies. Anheuser-Busch to Atlassian to Facebook to we have a freemium product that's being used by Dan. We have bar mitzvahs in Long Island being planned on Splash. You can imagine the wide range of functionality needed. But if you commit, and this is what Dan was talking about earlier, that you make a decision about where you're going to take the product. If you commit to building one product and not a bunch of one-offs, it's going to change the way your product will progress. And that's essentially eliminating technical debt down the road in so many words. Your product is going to be cohesive, it'll be smart, and it'll be able to think about all of these different features. And the only way to do that is by saying no a lot. It's the only way to do it. And you have to know when there's a client that's screwing you and it's going to take you down the wrong path.
And what does that conversation kind of look like? Is there some kind of pattern to understand from, like,
it's so hard, man.
What do they do? Do they look a certain way? Do they use certain words?
They have more money often, which is
that's a good pattern.
They always have a lot of cash, and they're always willing to throw it at you. And you know what? Actually, okay. So I'm a Jew, and I use a lot of these kind of. This is a good one. Sechel. It's a word that means you know that you know. A sechel. It's a knower. I would argue that, to your question, you know when you're screwing your product. You know when somebody's taking you down a road that you don't agree with. And the only times that you never heard someone say, like, man, I'm so sorry I trusted my gut there. Like
words that were never
how
said.
How the hell did I trust my gut? That sucked. I would just, it's those moments where you're like, man, this doesn't feel right, and this is going to take our product in the wrong direction. Now, the thing that I'm proud of is when I'm able to say, what you're looking for is actually this. We're going to build it like this, position it like this to you, and you're going to like it now.
Solve the problem regardless of what they ask.
Right, kind of, because you want to please. That's your job, and it gets you to that next level. Does that concept make sense about building one product for those of you who are building products? And I guess, do you feel like you can take it back to your people and kind of drill that home to them? Raise your hand if you have built a one-off. And I have. And raise your hand if it has hurt you in the long run. Okay, cool. So you guys know where I'm at.
Yeah, somebody said once is like when you solve for that customer, you get one new customer for that one feature, and that just doesn't scale. right? You'll have 10,000 features, and that's just not going to get you where you need to be.
Yeah, man.
So, I mean, one thing we talked a lot yesterday about what we wanted to cover today, and we were there was this really interesting concept. So in Atlantic Canada, and really any smaller community, there's this challenge around funding and getting access to capital, and people starting companies were thinking they need money to build stuff. And you were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're like, currency does not always come in the form of capital and cash.
Yeah.
What is that? What?
Awesome.
Elaborate on that.
Yeah. So exactly. I can say that. My tour company that I mentioned, I sold it for $25,000, which I think I spent yesterday. Right. The amount of money you have at the earliest stages, that's all I had was $25K to get this thing going. I assume many of you guys are in that same position, where you just have no money, and sometimes it feels a little helpless. So I guess what I learned at an early stage was that currency comes in many forms. Probably my favorite form of currency is the concept of momentum. And I would just, I would urge you to keep, so there's all sorts of, we were talking about other forms. There's vision is a currency, right? Your vision.
They talked about story.
Right, your story is a currency. It's something you can sell.
You just talked about design and legitness. That's a currency.
That is a currency. Your design, in a lot of ways, it looks very, very legit and rich, right? I would actually also argue that ego is a currency, your ability to give ego to somebody else. If you look at my website and you go to the team page, you'll notice that every single person who works for me has a video of them talking about what they do and why they love it and how much value they add. I try to make my team look like rock stars because I can't really pay them, but no one cares about the pay if they look like a rock star. And so that's a big deal. I try to get press for my team, right? I try to give them that ego. Also, you obviously have options, and something we were talking about earlier is do not, and especially in an early stage, be option stingy. You're
talking about stock options.
Stock options, excuse me. I gave a lot of my business away to my team, and I couldn't be happier because they're still with me. We are still working hard, and it's crazy. The guys with the most amount of equity in the business, they're the ones that are there till 4 a.m. when I'm there. Just kind of, and that's 4 years later. So just something to think about. And then momentum, and this is the one I want to. You can feel a momentum,
kind of plays
right?
into the hustle, right? When you hear all these stories that Michael and Daniel talked about, it was here's the things I did to create perception of momentum.
Yeah. And it is a perception momentum, and for that, and it's so fragile, right? Press gets you that little momentum. Bringing an investor into your office, or let's call it a cool speaker like a Belsky, that implies momentum to your team, and your team needs to see that momentum. The outside world also needs to see that momentum, and also you'll notice very fast that when somebody leaves your business, you feel that loss of momentum, and also when an investor declines, which happened to me so many times. Or worse off, when an investor takes their time, you can just feel your momentum dragging. I think I would just want everyone to recognize it as a currency and as something that is so important to protect. Just keep an eye on your momentum, and don't let anybody screw with it. And if somebody does leave your business and you feel that momentum drop, figure out a way to bring it back up. Go get everyone lunch, right? Go tell everyone why you're so excited about the product, because that's the only way to build that thing back up, and it's kind of all you got.
And how do you cash that? I mean, if you think of that idea of if you're building like a bank account with currency that's not cash, how can you use that? Like, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Like talk about. I mean, I think a lot
man.
of people are like, okay, I see what you're doing, but why would I spend it?
Right. How do you spend your currency, right, of that momentum? Goodness. I guess. So I once sat down with Dave Morin, the guy who started Path, one of the chief architects of Facebook applications, and he said to me one thing. He just said, "Look, before you go and start your business, this was the very early days." He said, "Just remember this one thing: your guys need you." And by your guys, I have a lot of women working for me now, but what he meant was the people who work for you need you. I guess I would just say that when you're thinking about cashing in momentum, kind of at the end of the day. You're going to fight with your co-founders all day long. You're going to hate each other sometimes. But when you're talking about cashing it in, they're kind of the only people that matter. Because at the end of the day, like, that's all you got, right, are these people surrounding you. Cash it in with them, right? Show them how excited you are. And people will hear about it. People will see that. I don't know if that's the exact answer. How would you?
I mean, that's I think what it is. I guess to make sure that everybody gets this, because I don't want people to think like, oh, I get it. And it's like then they do the wrong thing. You see that? They're like, lean startup. I'm a lean startup. And they're not. right? Like they think they're lean because they're cheap, but that's not lean startup. If somebody comes to you and says, I would love to start my business, but I need money to hire a technical co-founder, what do you say to them?
So that's real.
Happens
right?
all the time.
That is real, and you're strangling the business without that technical co-founder. And I think exactly. I think at that moment you have you reach into your pockets and you realize that even though you don't have that cash, you've got a lot more, right? And I would just ask you to think about what else you got. Vision. You got people who believe in you. You probably have some sort of social clout, and you might have that momentum. And if you don't yet, you can talk about how you're going to build it together. And also, you have their ego, right? You can give them more and brag for them and about them. And I'm sure you guys can think of others, but I would just, money is tough to come by, and anyone who's tried to raise money, I feel for you. And so I've just raised $6 million. I have $6 million in a bank account.
Has this been announced?
No, I haven't announced it. Please don't tell me about that.
Don't tweet.
I know, it's so cool. It's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
But I just want you to know, I've spent, weeks, months. I've gone insane trying to raise money. And anybody who has done this knows that. And yet we kind of scrap on. And I just want to say,
but let's
congrats
talk
and
about
go
that,
do
because there's these moments. I feel like in startups there's like these sprints within a marathon, right? And like fundraising's one, hiring key employees, partnerships are all these sprints within a marathon. How do you deal? Like it's not all yeses. You just said, like, I had a lot of people. How do you deal with the no's? Like what do you say? Let's talk about it. What happens?
I really cry a lot. It's really hard. I don't know. It's so hard, like, because at the end of the day, as we talked about, you have to be the vision, right? You have to tell the story, and it's almost, I don't know if anyone has felt this, but when somebody doesn't like your product, or even if they find a little bug in your product, it's as if they've just like slapped your child, right? It's absolutely awful. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I just don't have an answer for how to deal with it.
How do you do it?
How do I do it?
Other than crying, is there?
Yeah, fair.
What do you say to yourself in your head?
Yeah, man. What I try to do is I try to put one foot in front of the other. I try to say, all right, well, what are the actual things that I can execute upon right now? I also try to remember, I try to give myself perspective to where I've come. You'll find with that momentum curve that, so as I made that joke about how much money I spent yesterday, but I do think of money as, in a way, progress. The amount of progress that you are going to make in 2 years, if you keep on doing what you're doing, compared to today versus 2 years from now, it'll probably be so let me get this right. It's about 1 month to a day per year. So every single year, I probably expedite 1 month worth of work into 1 day of that next year. If you think about how fast you start to move, if you can have that perspective, I would even bet that even today, I bet you feel like your feet are, if you're doing a startup right, your feet are in the mud, and you could probably hate your life, or at least are nervous about your life. And I would just say that try to have that perspective of where you were last year and how much further you are this year than last. I don't know. That's kind of all I got. And if you want a hug.
So Ben's giving away free hugs.
That's kind of,
if you need to cry it out.
It's, I think it's helpful to know. I actually, that's something that people don't talk about enough, right? Like, we really don't. Like, startups suck. It's so hard. And I wish that people, recognize it's not rock star stuff. It's
like when we were talking in the car, I was like, and he announced that he had raised, and it wasn't public, so it's cool that you guys are the first ones to know. But he then immediately said, I don't want to, it's fucking hard. Like this shit is hard, and I don't want anybody to think that we can, and we don't want to make it seem like doom and gloom, but do you have any good stories for those meetings where you thought you were just going to be like a done deal?
Yeah.
And your heart got
actually,
broken?
yeah. And I think this will, so again, kind of friend DA, please, off the record. So we got an acquisition offer last year for.
It is being recorded.
Whatever. Just don't, I won't say the company that tried to acquire us, but it rhymed with Schmicket Master. And we had to make a
That wasn't even not close.
Okay, whatever. Well, so it was a life-changing amount of money, right? I've never, I don't really come from that money, and it would have changed everything. And moreover, it would have been an opportunity to get off the boat, which the ride was feeling pretty intense at the time and still is. We decided to not take it, and actually a couple weeks ago, that company purchased another company which looked similar to us about a year earlier, right? I don't know really kind of how else to put this, but I guess the reason we didn't do it was that we still had this dream. Our belief is, and this goes to Daniel's vision, is that our belief is that event planning is the most important thing, and this moment is the most important times of our lives. These are memories that we're creating that will, I believe that today our lives will change. Everyone's in this room life will change slightly or in a really, really big way. When we put the concept in those terms and then looked at what it might look like to essentially kind of dump the company. I mean, that's kind of what it would have been. It just didn't feel right. And so I guess that kind of beacon and my ability to express that beacon of light to my team was paramount. That was everything because they wanted out too. Well, at least they saw the bench. They wanted to sit down.
A lot of these guys did the clipboard.
Yeah, we've been working together hard.
People forget. It's like Splash is only a couple of years old, a year and a half, but there was this whole period
we had a journey, right? And so I guess I would urge you to, while the concept of my product has iterated, our kind of tried and true to our vision of purpose has not. And it's really that kind of gets you to that next level. But more than that, I'm proud to say there's my ability to communicate that vision and get everyone else on board. And I will say that especially if there are CEOs in the building, or frankly, anyone as a founder is acting like a CEO often. It's not hard to do stuff. It really isn't. You can go send emails, you can go through task lists, but to get other people to do stuff is tremendously difficult. And that's kind of all you need to focus on, is how do you get others to do it? Be your clients, your investors, your team. How do you get them on your team, right? How do you get them to move in your direction?
So, Ben, when I visited the office, there were some things that you guys do from a culture point of view that's super interesting. So, where did you learn or get inspired to do that, and what are some of those examples?
Yeah, well, actually, and this is, I hope, the lesson that I can take
I feel
from
like
this,
every startup in New York has a model agency, so I don't know if that's
right,
on purpose.
Yeah, you have to move into a building with a modeling
You
agency
have
in the
to.
building.
Like, it's a pretty great place to go visit.
The best talent. What I think Dan's referring to is we all sit in a circle. Nobody has their backs to each other. We all have control over the lights. We do LED lights, which is kind of like an event. I guess the reason we do that is kind of I want everyone to, again, feel like a rock star. I want everyone to kind of have their own area and also their ability to affect everything in such a big way at any given moment. Little things like that. Where did I learn it? I worked for a business. I imagine many of you did as well. And actually, this is where I learned it. Me. Look,
this guy right here.
No,
Two thumbs.
I think that's every single time I'm successful, I think it's because I put me into the business. And I put what I think is cool just because I think it's cool. And if it's what I think, and that's awesome, right? And every time that I think I'm doing something that other people think will be cool, it always isn't. And it always looks like crap. So I would just urge you to that's that seichel thing, right? Like, you're a knower. And if you are, you're going to do really well, I think, or at least after a lot of hard work.
So what if somebody screws up? Do they have to go in the middle of the circle and do a song and dance?
Well, Dan, that's actually okay, I'm going to pull out another Jew thing, so I hope you guys are cool with this. In one of our books, what we say is that if you shame someone publicly, it is the equivalent of killing them, which is a really heavy thing to say, right? Like, do not shame people publicly, ever, right? It's like the biggest deal ever. And that's been something, so no, you can't, we don't do it in the middle, and that's dangerous, right? When you have a congregation area in the middle, it's very, very easy to have conversations that are hard in that center, but you can't. What you can do and what you must do is lift them up in the middle, right? And that's your job. So as that leader, that's something I would if you can put that in your pocket, that's been really important. I have made that mistake before, because of course we all have, right? We say something that really shamed somebody. It's really bad. So that's been something, as we've grown, that's been something we've all had to kind of own.
So you'll talk to them in private, just never shame in public.
Exactly. And when you talk to them in private, tell them exactly what you're thinking. Exactly. I think that's been useful for me.
So I'm fortunate I get to speak to thousands of founders, tech guys through Clarity. And one question I like to ask them is, why do you think founders exist?
Whoa.
Yeah, it's I know I didn't prep you for it, but let's just spitball here.
Well, it's
what is the role of the people in here creating companies?
Yeah, I hope that I hope that that one thing I said a moment ago is the one that you take with you, which is that to get others on your team and to get on board with your momentum, that's what I hope that you can take. That's why I think we exist, because
So walk
people
me
need a
through
leader.
that.
The idea that you have all these people out here, and they need somebody to look to. They need a beacon of light. They need a symbol. They need a vision. They need a story.
How does that look? Like, what do you do? Like
What do I do?
tactically?
Wow. I honor the things that they do that are what do I do? I honor the things that are in line with my vision, and I kind of make them feel a little guilty if they go away from my vision. That's like a special breed of guilt. I wouldn't recommend it.
So if you get an engineer, what would he?
My tone of voice sounds like this. How could you do this to our users, right? Like, how could you,
shit.
right? It's a little more like, oh man, like how, like, don't you understand what they're going through? I try to make them empathize, which is like pretty, oh man, like that's heavy. I try to put it on that level, and I try to kind of be that. It's as if it's affected me.
Have you ever brought in a real user and be like, this is Jane, and you really hurt her?
Literally
taking 5 minutes more
daily I do
to
this.
figure out how to
It's
launch this page.
Very effective tool.
That's
but
intense.
It's scary, man. And yeah, you gotta personalize it. That's the story, right? It's my job to tell that story, and I think that's what we're really good at. Actually, I'm sorry. I don't know if we're running close to an end, but there's something
we got 8
There's
minutes.
something I really wanted to say.
minutes.
Michael was up here earlier saying that the only city that you have to go to is San Fran. I am so. I don't know. Is he still here?
Yeah, he's here.
Michael, you are way wrong, my friend. Now look, San Fran is awesome.
What say you, Ben?
Super awesome, but we are having a blast in New York. And I will also say, especially, firstly, if there are any students here, I met a couple that were super talented that are learning how to code. We have a summer internship program in New York, which you can rub elbows with the top industries and brands in the country. So I would love to talk to you about internships. And also, if you're running a business and you need a place to squat in New York, we set aside desks in our office, which speaking to culture.
Take Ben up on that. I know
Please
Raphael
come.
has spent time there.
I would love to. Please. You actually give more than you get, because we love bringing you in. We love talking to you. We won't waste too much of your time, but it's always fun to see new faces. And I can tell you guys are super duper smart. So please. And yes, and also just New York, it's like little shelves of the biggest businesses in the world. And you just get to go floor to floor and like turn them into your customers. It's incredible. So while tech is amazing in San Fran, business is amazing in New York.
And it is the center of the universe.
It is.
Let's be honest.
And I'm a Boston guy. I mean, it's scary. But yeah, come and hang out with us. We would love to see you.
So I want to wrap things up with a lot of people here, they're first-time founders. They're doing stuff awkwardly, right? So like they're trying to figure out how to approach customers and stuff. One of the things I would love for you to teach everybody in this room is, you're obviously a smart, capable, accomplished person. There's been a lot of speakers, and there will be I know Harley's here from Shopify. There's going to be a bunch of people later that they're going to hear, and they're going to, I want to talk to this person. Let's give people a framework for how to approach these folks like yourself in a way that's not weird, right? Because there's some weird, come on guys, like you guys have some weird ways, like you stare, you don't say anything, and then finally you just wait for me to go, okay, do you want to come talk? Like,
Right.
It's, so what
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the just kind of put your hand out. Hey, what's up?
because you've met some really famous
Yeah,
people, so
absolutely.
I'm assuming you've had to do this. How
Actually,
do
you know
it?
what my move is? So when I'm actually dealing with really famous people, what I'll do is, or not, just like entrepreneur, like that I'm like kind of a fanboy of, right? I always try to learn their entire life story, which is a little creepy, right?
You just don't tell them that
Right,
when
no,
you
you don't
meet
tell
them.
them that, but you do, if you know it, then firstly, your frame of reference is interesting, right? And then you can, look, I mean, again, they love to brag a little bit, right? So I usually, if you can find out what their first business is, I'll tell you this. If anyone ever comes up to me and is like, oh, you owned a tour company? Dude, that is awesome. I'm like, oh my God, let me talk to you
Your
about
heart
it.
melts.
I'll talk to you about it for hours. I love tours. So I found that to be the case.
That's a
with-
good one. So figure out their
their first business is always what they usually care about, or at least it's like a horror story that they're just like willing to talk to you about, which is kind of fun, as opposed to what you can get from them. That's the other thing. I would try not to pitch your startup. I loved what Michael did with that curve. The first encounter, if you pitch, well, I found that when I pitch, I always fail on the first one. But if I ask a bunch of questions and listen intently and then follow up with an email about what I learned and what I thought was interesting, and mind you, that first email, I think that's that second curve that hits. If you can hit them with that email that like is goofy and funny and clever and with a great PS, a PS is like my secret weapon, right? If you drop a PS in there with a
So
link,
from a marketing point of view, everybody reads the PS. Nobody reads
do,
the
right?
body. Yeah, no. I always put
you-
the
right.
the PS is the call to action.
it's like real.
Yeah, you put the PS with the link to the thing you need people to do. F the rest of the email.
It's really true.
Just so you know.
Yeah, I think that's a good move.
If you've ever gotten an email from me, there's a PS.
Right. You know what? Another one. This is kind of my secret weapon, and this is I
Share
saw
some
this.
secrets.
I saw this in Michael's email, and I want to call it out. The word "help" or "I need your help" is super powerful, and it doesn't need to be for something big. But we actually did this. We ran a test on from one of our emails, and we actually had to turn off the email subject that said "I need your help" because it was too powerful, and people started freaking out. They're like, "Wait, what do you need? How can I help you?" I don't know. I wouldn't use it so often, but if you need something or if you want to get someone's attention, help is a big one.
What are other things they shouldn't do?
Oh man, well, they shouldn't do. Yeah, pitch me on the first one, or just like send me a demo video. I really don't want to watch your demo. I don't know.
What about business cards? Do you like business cards?
I'm not going to use it. I would rather you take down my information, follow up interestingly. When I do it, I try. That's how I approach it. If I'm going after somebody I think is interesting, I'm certainly not at the level. I guess I do talk to a lot of people who are getting close to where I'm at, but I'm certainly nowhere close to where I'd like to be. And so when I talk to those people, they're not going to give me I'm not going to give them a business card. They will throw that away.
And I guess what are a lot of people? You know, Jevin started off this whole event talking about we need to think world class. We need to think on a bigger scale. Is that something you've always had, or did you learn it, and how did you learn it?
Man, thanks. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Yeah, actually, well, let me just say, I've spent time with a handful of you. I live in the scariest place in the entire world, and you guys are pretty awesome. I think you should just know that you're pretty world class. So I would
So you're saying these people are cool.
Yeah, you guys are rad.
Compared to New York, this is
I'm
awesome.
really into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, come to New York and don't worry about it. And just, you got this.
Hey guys, I think it's amazing, Ben. If you're honestly opening up your office to any
Yeah,
startup
please.
that wants it, you guys got direct flights. I'm actually about to jump on it in about an hour. I'm going direct to New York. Go hang out with Ben. He's one of the nicest guys in New York. He cares about community, cares about other people. And if you're doing something serious, I'm sure he's going to help out where he can. So let's give him a huge round of applause and
Yes,
make
thank
it
you
up
so
to
much.
Halifax.